Hello, everybody. This is Friday Fire. This is going to be called Bitcoin's Brutal Blip, but we're going to go into a whole bunch of other stuff, very much about perspective of where we are, where we've come from, where we're going, what's happening, who's selling, who's buying, and what chains are completely changing the game, and who is waking up to all of this happening. And probably most importantly is, again, that word perspective. People this week have been completely alarmed. And crypto is just how it is. These drawdowns will put that in perspective too. And how brutal it actually was compared to history, and find out exactly what's going. This one, if you find this bad, you are not prepared for a bear market, considering where we've come from. Anyway, let's get into it. Thank you all for coming. Sorry for that stern note. It's been an emotional week, and this is not financial advice, just a guy on the internet, as usual. Shout out to everybody on Patreon as well. Thalen Jett, thank you for coming. Sean Donnelly, K.A. T&D Tesla, appreciate you all. But Creole Marie, I had my son join your Patreon. Great. He will get a very nice education there. How I wish I had this resource when I was 20 years of age. Anyhow, let's get into it. Let's look at fear and greed first. Because despite the undulations in the market and the drawdown and the blip, fear and greed is still greed at 74. Bitcoin, in a few days, went from 108,000 to 93,000. That's a 14% retracement in a very short window of time, and it took people by surprise. We'll look at that now. What actually did get whacked pretty hard is also the stock market. And fear and greed in the stock market side by side is a very different story to crypto. It's now extreme fear. So the stockholders are very nervous, despite many stocks actually rebounding very well today after Dow having the worst drawdown since 2021. Crazy times. Now, the week was bad. This is kind of a quick look at exactly what went on. For the last 7 days, again, perspective, ETH is down 2%, Bitcoin down 2%. Again, we go up fast and we come down fast. Solana took it in the shorts, down 15%. Tron, down red, hard red, DOT, Litecoin, Avalanche, Doge, Sheep, etc. XRP, everything got hit with the exception of Link, Toncoin. And we'll talk about Chainlink as well in a minute, and some of the other chains too. But let's look at some perspective as to where we have come from. This is from Charts BTC. Bitcoin drawdown from all-time highs. You can see that little tiny little red line down on the right-hand side. That is 14%. And you can see it is not even a blip. That's why I called it blip. It's not a blip compared to the past. Brutal blip. Again, it's a blip. Again, it's just, I just want to share that perspective. It's normal. Some other things got hit a lot worse. But anyway, we'll get to those in a second too. Now, who is selling? Who is buying? Obviously, there's always market maker manipulation. There's always the hunting of leverage longs and shorts. It cuts both ways. But from James Van Straten, officially, 1 million Bitcoin has now been spent by long-term holders. That has gone from 14.2 million to 13.2 million in their bag. Yesterday, long-term holders spent 70,000 Bitcoin alone, the fourth biggest sell-off in the past 3 years. However, the most important thing here is the market absorbed it incredibly well. So yes, there is some lifestyle chips been taken. There is always profit taking taken. But long-term holders don't sell at all. They'll never sell at all. In fact, many of the wallets of these long-term holders will never move, probably, because it's lost, or Satoshi bag, or whatever else. But that is kind of a good news. Number one, a lot has been sold, and the price is still very close to $100,000. Number two, they're done pretty much with most of their selling at this level. If we go to 150,000, there could be a lot more selling as well, more lifestyle chips. But the most important line here is the market is absorbing it very well. We'll dig into that too. First, the ETFs. They had their worst drawdown in 15 days, everybody. 15 days. 16 days, because we had a record flow for the first 15 days of December. But the first outflow did hit. It was $680 million. Remember, some days BlackRock buys that much alone. So again, perspective, but it shows you why these spot ETFs, you know, they are sucking in a lot of Bitcoin, but it also brings in some speculators who buy and sell when they get a little bit nervous. And that is just how it works. But anyway, the point is, this is where we are. This is the drawdown. And sometimes like $1 billion could go into the ETFs in one day, or very close to it. $750 million is what BlackRock bought the other day. And the price stays pretty much the same. But the good news is as well, the price after a dump of 680 million also goes up sometimes, because much of this action happens over the OTC desks. So that's an important perspective as well. A lot of perspective today in today's video, just to hope everybody can get this. Now, let's talk about some of the good news that's coming down the pike before we get to who's actually buying and stacking. This from Bitcoin Archive. Hey, Archie. This is ETF In-Kind is coming. Hester Pierce, SEC Commissioner, suggests that spot Bitcoin ETFs may have in-kind redemptions in 2025. And this will allow investors not only to deposit their Bitcoin into ETFs for safe holding, but also withdraw Bitcoin. Now, I don't know what the tax ramifications of that could be, but if it's in kind, just moving it from one place to another, maybe there's no tax ramification. That would make this very attractive. And of course, it's completely logical. But let's get into some of the crazy stuff that's happening behind the scenes. There is a huge movement now to try and incentivize the Fortune 100 companies to allocate to Bitcoin with the new regime that's coming into place on the 20th of January, which is exactly 1 month from now. It's the 20th of December. 1 month to go. 30 days, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what happens. But this is from Impact Theory. Michael Saylor was on. And Michael Saylor said, point blank, the first country to print their own currency to buy Bitcoin wins. You could not describe game theory in a more succinct way. Michael Saylor has a way with words. So there we are. Brilliant. Who is doing it, though? We don't know. Emirates, Russia, many places, a lot of stuff happening. But let's get into Saylor for a second and MicroStrategy. We know they're being added to the QQQ in a short number of days. MicroStrategy is up over $30 per day after, of course, getting hit pretty hard over the last couple of days as well. But here, this is the MicroStrategy playbook results since August 2020. MicroStrategy is up 3,000% since the 10th of August 2020. NVIDIA up about 1,200%. Bitcoin up about, what was it, 800% or so. Tesla, 350, 380%. Google, etc. These are the plays. And in full disclosure, I own the top 4 of those companies on that list. No surprise there, of course. Anyway, let's talk more about the excitement. And I want to try take some more perspective of what happens over time. Now, I remember distinctly in 1999, the day that the NASDAQ hit 3,000. The exact date here was the 2nd of November, 1999. $3,000. Now, I was thinking, that's 25 years from now. What would happen if there is an asset like MicroStrategy that gets added to the QQQ at a 0.5% weighting, and the QQQ, you take into account how much that grows over time, and add a little kicker that maybe Michael Saylor's company will outperform the QQQ by 20%. What would the price be of MicroStrategy 25 years from now? If it still exists, if Bitcoin still exists, etc. I'm not saying this is going to, but it's just one of these things I think about. So I did the math, and here we are. If those things happen 25 years from now, i.e., the QQQ performs the same and MicroStrategy grows 20% beyond the QQQ, that means MicroStrategy price would go from $362 today to $34,531 in 25 years. This is the importance of sometimes holding something and waiting. Yes, 25 years is a long time. However, the funny thing about 25 years is I remember that infamous day of 3,000 like yesterday. That was 25 years ago. I remember it. So the question, hope I'm around in 25 years to see where all this goes and see all the type of disruption that's happening out there. Fun times. And incidentally, the NAV premium for MicroStrategy fell to an all-year low This is the lowest price in 2024. NAV premium model is now 1.992596891. And AutoCalc is 2.009. There's two different ways of calculating it, depending on which data feed you take, around data, market cap, number of shares, etc. But we have not seen under 2 so far this year, and we just made it today. So that's kind of special, especially with the addition that's happening. Now, other news too. Who else is ramping up their buys? We know Saylor probably will buy on Monday. We shall see if that's true, but every week he has. And I don't think next week will be any exception. But El Salvador is also upping their buys from Bitcoin Magazine. They snagged on 11 Bitcoin worth over $1 million for their strategic Bitcoin reserve. They've been buying one a day for the last 2 or 3 years, if I recall. But now they've just 11x that one a day buy. So that's pretty special. Again, compared to what Saylor is buying, it's not a big bag, but every little bit counts. Okay. But it's not just El Salvador. Metaplanet, another MicroStrategy Bitcoin Treasuries Playbook company, which is the best performing stock in Japan by a long way. They just raised another $161 million via bonds to buy more Bitcoin. I think that's about 9.5 billion yen and 2 tranches of bond issuance. So again, they continue to snack. And the firms that are buying, they don't care if the price is 95,000 or 102,000 or 105,000. They're just, it's the arms race to get their hands on it, which is quite impressive. Now, as well, per the Bitcoin Treasuries website, there are now 20 companies that hold over 1,000 Bitcoin, with, of course, the biggest being MicroStrategy at 439,000, all the way down to Fold that has 1,000 Bitcoin and everything else in between. But not just 20 companies, which is now a whole bunch of, I think it's over 60 companies have more than 100 Bitcoin. But this list is about to explode. More treasuries are coming every single day. But let's talk about the ones that hold not over 1,000, but the ones that hold over 10,000. Shout out to HODL 15, who has his top 60 list. You can see the top 4 companies that hold over 10,000 Bitcoin. We have a brand new addition. It's HUD8. They issued debt to buy more Bitcoin or ATM or whatever. And now they have 10,096 Bitcoin. Riot, 17,429. Marathon, 44,394. And 10 times Marathon is MicroStrategy, 439,000. And this inspired me to create a new model, which will be coming real soon. I call it the HODL model, excuse the pun, but it's going to rank the actual HODL, percentage of market cap, premium, etc. across all of these different assets. Working on that as we speak. So that'll be fun to play with. Now, in other news too regarding Bitcoin, why are all these companies buying as much as they can? And will a bear market come? We'll see. But this is from Bitcoin Magazine Pro. They believe, per their model, the terminal price for Bitcoin this run is $185,000. Again, that's nearly a doubling from here per their terminal price model, which is interesting. Per my models, I get to maybe 165 based on the history, but that could be interesting. Anything north of 120 is going to be amazing. 150, wow. 165, mind-blowing. 185, incredible. And there's a lot of people talking about 250K and maybe no bear market as well. What could trigger this? Let's get into it. Lummis Plan. Senator Cynthia Lummis, I should say, has proposed she has a whole plan for this, but this is the latest cut suggesting the creation of a strategic Bitcoin reserve that involves the Federal Reserve buying 200,000 Bitcoin annually for 5 years and holding it for at least 20 years. That would mean a million Bitcoin bag. It's going to be hard to get there, but you know what? Let's go back to Michael Saylor and see what he said. The first country to print fiat to buy Bitcoin wins. Okay, this is game theory like we've never seen before on the planet. Sucking 1 million out of the world would drive the price way north of 250K, way north. And it will also help, the amazing thing about this, it would help make the US dollar stronger and help deal with the deficit problem and the debt problem too, because of the growth of Bitcoin. It's probably one of the biggest no-brainers you could possibly ever come across. Will governments do it? I don't know. I don't think the majority of governments are very smart. Some are, though. Some have some smart individuals that can have some sway, but it does require a lot of disruption to make this happen. And that brings me to the next point. What are the odds of the US doing a Bitcoin treasury? And let's go to our friends at Polymarket. And now the odds of this happening within the first 100 days under the new administration is now 34%. So 1 in 3 in 100 days, not bad. But that would have a huge impact on the price of Bitcoin. So I will be doing, hopefully tomorrow, an expected value analysis of these probabilities, times price, times hardness, times multiplier, to see exactly what would happen to the Bitcoin price if this was to happen in the next 100 days, because these are the type of questions I ask myself all the time, and I answer them and I share it with you all. So hope you like it. Next, tied into this too, is what happens if this happens? A Bitcoin Reserve Act, 1 million Bitcoin taken from the system, then other countries will follow. Well, could this break the halving cycle? The 4-year cycle going to end? Could we enter a mythical super cycle? I don't know, but it's going to be fun to watch. At some stage, a country is going to print fiat and stack Bitcoin. That's pretty much guaranteed. We just don't know who yet. Who's going to have the courage? Who's going to pull the trigger? Who's going to and make it happen? So we shall see. Also, what we learned this week too is Bitcoin is still correlated to macro. This is from Econometrics. In the big picture, this is a blip. You can hardly see it on the orange chart. But yes, we did take a dip after the FOMC meeting. After, by the way, JP said central bank, Fed, etc. should not be holding Bitcoin. That rattled the markets and Bitcoin. And of course, inflation fears. And the weird thing about that is inflation fears are creeping back in. Bitcoin technically is an inflation hedge. People say it's not. Clearly, it outperforms Bitcoin. Just look at the number of houses you can buy with Bitcoin 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. You'll see it is an extremely good inflation hedge, far better than real estate. But this serves as a clear reminder that Bitcoin is not an uncorrelated asset. You can see the dip in Bitcoin was more than double the dip in the NASDAQ. QQQ fell 4.1% after the FOMC, and Bitcoin fell 8.5% to a maximum of 14%, which happened when it dipped to 93K this morning. But of course, that's the market makers. They feast on bad news and they manipulate the market to drive it down through liquidation levels so they can grab your stuff. That's how it works. So we'll see what happens next. Now, related to that, there's more macro nerves that is making everybody very, very afraid. And this one is, will there be a US government shutdown? That's the next fear. And the way markets work is every week, every few days, something will terrify the hell out of people and drives prices down. But apparently, there's now a 40% chance of a government shutdown. The government is in chaos. It's 30 days before a handover. And they're doing everything they possibly can, the US, to screw the pooch, as they say. But let's get back to some more good news. Bhutan, another stacker. They have just activated, or on the cusp of activating, a 100 megawatt phase 2 to add to their 500 megawatt plan. This is a hydroelectric power plant that they will use to mine Bitcoin. Okay? And their Bitcoin reserves already exceed $1 billion. But again, a tiny little country, infinite energy, are mining Bitcoin like crazy, and they're stacking it. And they're making the hash rate go up, making the network more secure, also making it a little bit more difficult for publicly traded miners to make good profits. But that's just the nature of the beast. Many countries, I believe, are mining on the sly. Bhutan happened to do it very openly, but I think others are doing it in secret, including places like Russia, Kazakhstan, etc. Now, let's switch gears to a little bit of crypto news, and then some more stock news, and then some more macro news at the end. First of all, Sol Exchange outflow surges. This is actually typically a very bullish sign. A lot of people pulling their Solana off the exchange. And I know everybody who is not a Solana holder, but they're holding something else, the FUD storm reminds me of 2021 and 2022. It's quite incredible. But let's look at some data from some people that maybe know how to allocate capital. This is from Chamath. And he said, I'm brushing up on crypto. This was interesting. I'm relearning all things crypto going into the Trump presidency. This isn't an endorsement of any specific project, but it's an acknowledgement that a potentially disruptive wave to commercialize crypto may be forming. Chamath has an eye on the future. And he shared a video from Kyle, I will talk about that in a second, is an excellent and good jumping off point to Solana and the ecosystem there, which I find increasingly very interesting. So now you got Silicon Valley VCs. Some of them already hold some Solana, like Saks and others, who is now part of the new administration. But now you've got Chamath sharing this. This is a video worthwhile watching. It's from Samani, Kyle Samani, and he basically talks about why Solana will flip ETH, all the good stuff that's happening, all the key things that are happening in the space. Namely, well, he did say Solana is very mispriced in his video, and he believes it'll eclipse all of ETH and all of the layer 2s, which brings me to the next session. One of the things he did say is the 5 key themes that are so important in crypto. One is, of course, Solana. Number 2 is DePin. That's decentralized physical infrastructure networks. And 2024 is a breakout year. I'll share some of the data around that. And Solana is the home for such projects. Names you probably know like Helium, HiveMapper, Render. I own all of them except for HiveMapper. And Solana had an outstanding year, reaching all-time highs. Then it has retraced. Yes, it's 33% off the all-time high, but that's what happens with very volatile assets. We talked about things like integration with Stripe, talked about the importance of stablecoins, talked about regulation and how it's changing around the world, and also the importance of Wall Street and the big money that's coming in. And he expects a Solana ETF next year as well. Well, let's look at some data. Okay, where's all this coming from? What's with this Solana blockchain thing? And the L2s. One of the crazy things now, Base is now the number 2 chain in terms of number of daily transactions as of yesterday, the 19th of December. Okay, Base is a layer 2 built on Ethereum. It's owned by Coinbase. There is no token. Don't go buy a fake Base. It doesn't exist. But it's achieved huge amount of transactions, $4 billion TVL, and higher user adoption and retention rates. And they've done it without airdrops or anything else. They're growing organically. And they're playing a crucial role in Ethereum scaling efforts. Proves that layer 2s, yes, they do work, they can work, but it doesn't really help Ethereum much because they retain 83 to 85% of the revenue, and the crumbs go to the mothership, Ethereum. But Base is crushing it. A visual of the data. Solana is number 1, 64.4 million. By the way, of 103 million daily transactions, basically 2/3 of all transactions in the world happen on Solana. When you see FUD, just go back to the data. Okay, that's all we do here. Base is now number 2 with 7.3 million, and Sui number 3 with 6.4 million. And you go all the way down the line to Ethereum, 1.3 million. But Base is now doing nearly 7x what Arbitrum did, or 3x. It's doing nearly 7x what Ethereum does. And Optimism as well. Base is leaving everybody in the dust, but it's taking all the money from themselves. And shout out to Cardano as well. They do 0.0007 of all transactions, but they have a huge market cap. So if logic, that's all I'll say on that one. Let's look at some of the platforms that are running on Solana. One, Raydium is crushing it. They are doing nearly 90% of all the DEX volume on Solana. Huge amount of fees are being made as well. Revenue, 32 million for Raydium, 4 million for Orca, and 1 million for Lifinity. And I have little pieces of all of those 3 as well. Because like Saman, he basically ditched all his layer 2s, all his Ethereum ecosystem plays and focused on one chain, one ecosystem. And that's kind of what I decided to do in 2023. In addition, DePin revenue also mentioned. You can see here the growth in DePin has gone from nothing in January pretty much to a massive amount of growth of revenue. Render being number 1. Number 2 is Helium. Number 3 is HiveMapper. And number 4 is Nosana. Again, I own all of them with the exception of HiveMapper in full disclosure. But the most important thing is this. The revenue, Solana revenue is up 15x year to date. DApps revenue is up 14x year to date. This is incredible. This chain makes more money than all other chains combined, and it's come from nowhere really fast. The question is, will this continue? We shall see. Now, switching gears, talk about Chainlink for a second. Chainlink also has done very well over the last couple of months. But when I look at CryptoQuant's Chainlink transaction count, it has not really gone anywhere, despite the fact we're in a very active bull market. I mean, look at the transactions growth here, look at the revenue growth here, and Chainlink is lower than it was in 2022. I don't know what's going on. Yes, there has been a little bit of an uptick in transactions. They're doing about 12,000 transactions a day, but we'll see what happens with Chainlink. But a lot of people are very bullish on that, but I don't see it. Unless, of course, they're doing extremely high-value transactions with RWA and working with Wall Street, which is also part of what they're doing too, which can account for a lot. In addition, a little Polygon, they changed the name to Paul, whatever. I know it is Matic, but Polygon Whales plan to sell 80 million tokens. This is from Ali, and he observed the Polygon whales have turned to selling. According to him, whales have sold over 80 million Pol tokens worth 41.2 million over the past 48 hours. And maybe, I think, Polygon see this happening. You've got, again, other chains sucking up all the action. There's no loyalty in crypto. People go to the best, cheapest, fastest place. So when they look at how Polygon is shrinking compared to Arbitrum and Base, maybe that's the reason the whales are giving up the ghost on Pol. And I always say as well, when a group rebrands, watch as to why. They're trying to maybe distance themselves from the past. And I think that sometimes can be construed as a red flag. I don't know, just in other industries, I see that. Now, back to stocks. We start a little bit with talking about some stocks and all the stocks that are holding Bitcoin. But stock allocations are at an all-time high. This is U.S. equity allocations surged to record high. People see bad inflation. People are leaving treasuries. People are leaving money market as rates come down. And they're FOMOing into stocks, which is also an inflation hedge. One of the stocks that's done incredibly well over the last few months is Tesla. And what's also pretty incredible is there are rumors, allegedly through leaked emails, that Tesla is trying to launch Robotaxi in Austin, Texas first, and as early as sometime next year. That seems maybe a little bit ahead of schedule. A lot of people didn't think that they'd see them rolling around until 2026, but they are actively testing these puppies in Texas right now. Joe Tegmeyer shows tons of testing happening there. And by the way, the Giga Texas is in Austin, Texas too. And Bloomberg also expect these things to be on the roads next year. In addition, private robotaxis will be available if you've got a Model 3 or a Model Y, maybe with AI4 on it, FSD. Maybe you can deploy that as robotaxi too. Rumors from Brad Gerstner believe that can be launched as early as the first half of 2025. This stuff is all happening very fast. But it's not just robots and wheels. It's robots too. This is from Figure. Figure officially became a revenue-generating company. They launched their F.02 humanoid robot with a commercial client, and they're hard at work. And again, robots are here. It's no longer a myth or a fantasy. They're doing productive work. Humanoid robots are doing productive work in factories today. The question is, which company can scale? Which company has the best AI, the best manufacturing prowess, the best automation, the best reach? And we know big plans are happening. And all these plans seem to be being brought forward, not just Robotaxi, but also Optimus Robot with the TSMC news I mentioned earlier in the week too. Now, a little bit of bad news, but maybe if you're going shopping, it's good news. This is from Zero Hedge. Big Lots is the latest company to hit the wall. They're going out of business, but there's a going out of business sale at all stores. I'm not really sure what they sell. I think maybe furniture and stuff like that. I'm not sure exactly, but check it out. Check out what they do. But that's sad news because normally this is a place where people go for discounted stuff. And when a discounted store goes out of business when there's recessionary indicators is also very alarming. And this is another recession indicator as well. This is the Walmart recession indicator is firing up from the Kabasi newsletter. Again, not exactly related to Big Lots, but also somewhat related in my opinion. So the real story is the economy is not strong. More recession indicators are firing. This is a cool little chart here. This is the Walmart recession signal. It's jumped to the highest level since the 2020 pandemic. And this is a recession indicator measured by the Walmart stock price, Walmart divided by the S&P Global Luxury Index of luxury goods stocks. And the gauge has almost doubled this year. Okay? What this basically means is people don't have as much disposable income. They stop buying luxury items, and instead they go to places where they can save money like Walmart. So you don't see people with Prada and Louis and Gucci purses shopping in Walmart. But maybe you do now. I'm not sure. I don't know. But this is also concerning. The economy is not good. The job market is not good. The Fed is not playing. This could be a little bit of a mess unless things change in about 30 days, which are also possible. Thank you all for coming. That was Friday Fire. Actually, before I wrap, let's see what's happening with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's 96.6. Yeah, it's doing it, but it's the weekend. And crypto, normally, about 85% of the time, does good at the weekends. We'll see if it's going to be one of those weekends too. Thank you all for coming. See you tomorrow for the week wrap and then Q&A on Sunday at noon Pacific. Thank you as well to the mods in the chat and everybody else here. Be safe, take care of each other, and get ready for the holidays, which is coming up 5 days to Christmas. And of course, I'll be here every day. You'll see me on Christmas Day if you care to as well. Thank you all. Bye-bye.